right, everyone. How are you doing? It is 3:01 in Kitsap County. It is a beautiful 72 degrees. Hit the horn for the weather. It is a beautiful day, for sure. So glad that you can join us today. This is the second Wednesday of the month, and as such, this is our whoops. All right, just want to make sure we're looking good there. This is our deep dive. So we're going to get into our deep dive conversation for the day. Let me make sure that we got folks coming on in here, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So, hope that you are, as always, being productive, getting things done, making change, as always. All right, we're going to go ahead and paste that link for our Facebook folks so they can come on over to YouTube. Should they want to join us from over on the Facebook side, got quite a few people that really enjoy Facebook. So we're trying to get them over there to YouTube. Anyhow, what we're going to do today is we're going to get into our deep dive. And what I want to go over is the point in time count for 2023. All right. So, what is the point in time count? One day a year, the county goes out and works with a bunch of volunteers and others to try to get as accurate a count of the unhoused population as possible. And so we're going to go over those statistics here and kind of show you what's been going on. We'll do a comparison between this year and previous years and just see what we can extrapolate from that. All right. Let's go ahead and pull that up. I'm going to go ahead and make myself nice and small here. This is the point in time count. And I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat should you want the link there. That is the link to the point in time count that you can get on the county's website. And as you can see, I'm just going to go ahead and just read this information for some of you that may have not seen this. But again, this is accessible to you. You should know about this. Be informed in regards to what the city, what the county is doing in regards to the homeless population and what's being done, right, to eradicate this. The point in time count is an annual survey that gathers information about people experiencing homelessness during a 24-hour period at the end of January. The survey provides critical information regarding the scope and nature of homelessness in our community and can impact funding for homeless housing and services. Okay. That's one of the reasons why this is so very important, right? As this point in time count is that data is collected, that is sent up, right? And then funding comes into the county and comes into the cities based on, the numbers that exist. So it is definitely important. Because participating in the survey is voluntary and relies on volunteers finding people experiencing homelessness, it is considered to be an undercount of the actual number of people experiencing homelessness. So you may look at these numbers and say, hey, you know what? I'm looking at this and I think there's way more people experiencing homelessness than what these numbers represent. And you would absolutely be right. Participants are surveyed in a number of locations throughout the county, including the Project Connect resource fairs, which took place over 3 days, January 23rd, 24th, and 25th of this year. And food banks, meal sites, encampments, and in the streets. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this first graph here on the left. Increasing numbers of unsheltered individuals. In 2023, count of 245 unsheltered individuals indicate a 34% increase from 2022 and a 23% increase from the prior highest count of 199 in 2020. Note that additional shelter beds were in operation during 2021-23, and that was due to the pandemic. The unsheltered count was not performed in 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So here you can see here in this chart. And for now, let me go ahead and just zoom in here. Go ahead and really zoom in. Make this our focal point. So as you can see, our graph is our x-axis is years, and our y-axis is number of unhoused up to 600. And you can see we have our total counts at 604 for 2023. And in 2022, it was 563. Again, this is a count based on one day, right? 324 back in 2021. That's quite the increase. Okay, quite the increase. Now, if we look at our transitional housing, 102 were in transitional housing in 2023. The year prior was 136, and in 2021, 123. And in previous years, I'm looking forward to talking with KCR and the Birmingham Housing Authority and some others to see what they think about these numbers, right? Because if you look, we're looking at 2014, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? 102 marks the lowest amount of folks in transitional housing. Okay. Now, uh, the converse of that is true. There were 257 people that were in emergency shelters in 2023, 244 in 2022, and 201 in 2021. Okay. And that is up by a massive amount from 2024, right? Almost what? 4 times that amount, right? 4 times 60, about 240. So about 4 times that amount in an emergency shelter. And some of that may be attributed to COVID, right? But if you're looking at 2020, which is, they do that count in January, you had an increase. It's been increasing pretty much every year except for 2017 to 2018. It actually went down. And then from 2018 to 2019, it went up by 5 from 153 to 158. You'll see there, right? That's pretty interesting. And then, you had a steady increase. And then all of a sudden, you had this explosion in 2021 through 2023. And here we are, 257 for this year. All right. So unsheltered. So the total unhoused on the street, right? 245. Last year was 183. And in the very beginning of the pandemic, they did not do a point in time count. So we don't know what those numbers were. Now, here's what's interesting 2020, the year before, was at 199. Okay. And in 2022 was 183. And I think this kind of supports what they were saying, right? Due to the pandemic, there were more emergency shelters open. And also, again, it's a point in time count. So it is just that day. And so a lot of factors can be representative on why they were only able to count 183 people last year. Okay. But even with that, you're seeing, let's look, 77 to 106 is 29. 106 to 181 is a huge increase, right? That's almost 70, about 65. Then it dropped down here by almost 20. And then it dropped down again. And then we had an increase by about 52 or 53, 54. I'm sorry, not 54, 24. And then we had another increase by almost 26. And then they didn't count in 2021. We had a dip, and then we had a massive increase here. Okay. A massive increase. Now, unfortunately, when they do the point time count in January of 2024, these numbers are likely to be higher if there's nothing put in place between now and January, right? Because the shelter at Salvation Army has closed as of April 31st. Okay. And everyone was not transferred to another place for housing, another shelter. So that's unfortunate. Unfortunate. So now, if we look at the total sheltered, we see 359 in 2023. We see 380 in 2022, 324 in 2021, and we've kind of hit that threshold. We broke the 300 mark back in 2017, which we broke it by almost 100, right? So I don't know what was going on back in 2016, 2017, uh, which is definitely something to look at, especially when you look at the fact that the unsheltered went down in uh, 2017 here at 165, but that total sheltered number is 352 there, right? Okay. And then 308, 305, 334, 324, 380, really high, and then 357. Now, if we go again to our total count for adding everything together, we come up with 604 souls. Okay, up by about 39 folks from 2022, up almost 200 from 2021. Because again, the unsheltered, uh, those outside, were not counted in 2021, and up about 30 from 2020 to 2022. So that does seem to track quite a bit there. But as you can see, in a 10-year period, we've gone from 298 to 604 in our point in time count. So that is a we've doubled. We've doubled our unhoused being counted on one day in 10 years, in a decade. All right. So now that we've looked at that, let's go and let's look at our cities. Efforts were made to survey widely across Kitsap County where households experiencing homelessness were anticipated to be encountered. Participants experiencing unsheltered homelessness, 210 households, 245 individuals were surveyed in the following locations throughout the county. And this is always very surprising to people when they see these statistics, right? How homelessness is not just Bremerton, it's not just Port Orchard, right? But 58% were counted in Bremerton. 15% were counted in Port Orchard. A lot of people say that they get pretty surprised to hear that 15% in Silverdale, 8% in Poulsbo, and 4% in Bainbridge Island. All right. Another stat that we need to look at here. Let's see if I can move this over. My little, there we go. The last place, oh, let me go up a little higher. Defining what is sheltered versus unsheltered. For the purposes of this survey, information is collected on sheltered in emergency shelter or transitional housing versus unsheltered homelessness. In 2023, 245 people said they were unsheltered. The majority of those who were unsheltered indicated that they lived outside in places not meant for human habitation. And so you can see the breakdown here. So for the total unsheltered, you see outdoors, on the street, in a tent, etc., 26%. 9% were in a vehicle. 5% were in an RV, in a boat, lacking amenities. That could be water, electricity, you know, I would assume maybe internet, but definitely those are typically those amenities, right? Then you had 59%, 359 people who were in an emergency shelter, 43%, and then 17% were in transitional housing. Okay. So that is kind of the how you understand how these the color coding goes, right? That light blue, total unsheltered, the dark blue are the sheltered there. Okay. And the different demographics there. All right. So now let's go down. The last place of residence. So this often causes thought, and there's some mythology that can be centered around here too. Surveys also collected information about the last city of permanent residence, and 27% of unsheltered households provided this data. So that's something to consider too, right? Only 27% of those surveyed answered this question. 42% or 75% of those households previously had stable housing in Kitsap County. Okay. So 75% were previously stable in Kitsap County. 9% were from other counties in Washington, and 16% were from out of state. We should take a look at last year because I think this number might have increased. That seems a little high, right? And the myth that I was talking about was um, sometimes people there are some people that think that this number is actually a lot higher, right? As Washington has been is considered a, a resource rich place for people to come in and receive services, right? And that's in comparison. Obviously, there's not enough services for people. All right. So now we're going to go back over to the left side here so I can talk about this. All right. So let's take a look at the characteristics here. Okay. When asked about various personal characteristics, 142 unsheltered heads of households, 68% responded, right? The most common response from the survey participants was they experienced challenges related to mental health, followed by chronic substance abuse, use, and permanent disability and chronic health conditions. Right, 67% mental health. Me just I should do a reveal. Right, 67% mental health. That is basically 2 and 3. Got 3 people, 2 of them are gonna say mental health, was that catalyst, a characteristic that they have, right? Alright. Now, the next one, chronic substance use. This could be drugs, alcohol. So, we're not even talking about half here. So, mental health, 2 out of 3. Chronic substance use, 1 out of 2, almost. And I think this surprises a lot of people also, right? A lot of people think this is a lot higher, that a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness are addicted to drugs or alcohol. And that is not accurate. However, is what is unfortunate is um, when people experiencing homelessness for a period of time can find themselves in this scenario, right? All right. Permanent physical disability. So this is 35%, basically 1 in 3. Okay. So 1 in 3 have a permanent physical disability. Obviously, how can this present? Can't work. If I can't work, I can't pay my rent, right? And so that causes some serious challenges, especially with our unaffordable housing issues here. Chronic health conditions, 23%. So almost 1 in 4 have chronic health conditions. Now, you can have permanent physical disability and you can have chronic health issues. Your chronic health issues can also contribute, or you may also have mental health issues. And clearly, substance use is going to create chronic health issues. So, even though we see that these numbers don't add to 100, they're not going to. People are able to indicate that, look, I have mental health issues, I have a physical disability, I have chronic health issues, right? Now, I will tell you that I have 2 of these, right? I have a permanent physical disability and I have some chronic health conditions. Domestic violence, 11%. I think, quite a few people may think that this number is actually higher, but only 11% responded, indicating that DV was one of the characteristics of homelessness. And developmental disabilities, 8%. And so that is the makeup there. Okay. Now let's go over to the causes of homelessness. Oops. Gotta get on this screen here. There's my mouse at. So, what are you thinking about these numbers as you see those? Is it surprising to you? Is this kind of what you thought? Okay. So, the cause of homelessness. When asked about the specific cause or causes of homelessness, 113 people or unsheltered households responded, which is about 54%, a little more than half responded. The most common response was health issues, including mental health, economic issues, loss of job or unable to work, and housing issues, eviction of loss of housing. Okay. So, as we can see here, I'll put myself on the side there. So, I'm out the way. Move, get out the way. All right. So, what caused their homelessness? So, this is how a little bit more than half of the respondents responded, right? It wasn't addiction, it wasn't drugs or alcohol, it was mental health and or health issues. 46%. 46%. I told you a story how I was having a conversation with my surgeon, and he was inquiring what because he knows what I do, and he was inquiring, do you think, and does the data show that people are homeless due, primarily to addiction? I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so if you don't know, you don't know, right? And so you may be operating based on what you hear in social media, um, maybe what you've been taught, whatever your domestication is or your experience with homelessness, that may be, your worldview on that. But when we look at it, that's not the top at all, right? It's mental health and health issues. Number two, job loss or unable to work. The pandemic, if we look at the numbers increasing, right? If we look at why people have lost a job uh, for different reasons, outsourcing of work, um, more people, it's more competitive. What I'm concerned about, and I've been talking about quite a bit lately, is AI and how a lot of entry level jobs and some that aren't entry level are being replaced by AI. And if you have not used it, I encourage you to take a look at it because you need to be informed. I was talking to a cybersecurity uh, personnel for a contractor for the military, and what he was saying is his recommendation was you need to know what it is. You should be, somewhat versed in it to try to inoculate yourself against, the coming technology and what it's going to look like in, I would say probably quicker than 5 years, but 18 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Your children, or if you're planning on having children, how is that going to impact them? How is that going to impact you into retirement? When we think about the jobs that AI can do, we think about chatbots, we think about customer service. Um, and so we're seeing these things more and more. They're able to write blog posts. They're able to write movie scripts. Hollywood's on strike right now. The Writers Guild is on strike. So, Chat GPT and all these other AI models can write scripts, they can create games, they can build apps, they can code, right? Basic coding can cause issues with job prospects and outlook, right? And so I believe that this number is very likely to increase here in the very near future. And so I would work with professionals and research and stay informed on what type of careers can you do that are going to inoculate you from not having a job or not being gainfully employed, not having a family wage that can keep you and your family housed and thriving, right? Not surviving, but being resilient. I think that's going to be critically important going forward. And I may do um, some podcast on that just to kind of talk about that to keep people in the loop. Eviction and loss of housing, 28%. Okay. This is almost one in three, right? We're almost at 33% there. Um, what I will say about this is, of course, the moratorium on eviction has pretty much just kind of ended, right? And now we're seeing across the country that uh, local governments are saying, hey, okay, COVID is not, we're not in a pandemic anymore. We don't need to have these emergency procedures in place. So now people can be evicted. Okay. And some of the things that you should be cognizant of here from the anecdotal stories that I've been getting in as a service provider are when people are trying to move uh, and they're not being evicted, just trying to move, that their payment history, because they weren't paying the rent during the pandemic, has caused them to not get housing from that particular landlord because, hey, during the COVID, you decided not to pay your rent, right? These things can be a hit on your rental history, on your credit score, the relationship with your landlord, right? They're going to want to have those conversations. So all these things can very much impact your ability to move to a new location, right? Or if that person decides to sell their property or they don't want to rent to you anymore or they raise the rent to a price that you can no longer afford, it can be tremendously difficult for you to move to another location, right? Tremendously hard. And if you get evicted, well, that's a black mark. So that is going to be very challenging for you to find alternative housing. Okay. A family conflict, 27%. We still have not gotten to drugs and alcohol. Okay. And again, this adds up to more than 100 because it can be multiple things, right? So you can have health issues and mental health issues. Let's say, hey, I've got a permanent disability, I've got some chronic health issues, and I'm staying with the family member, and that relationship gets fractured to the point where you got to go. You can't be here. I love you, but you can't be here. Now I'm evicted. Now I've lost my housing, right? Which would then kick in eviction and loss of housing. Or you lost your job, right? And you're unable to work and maybe a family member takes you in, right? Because a lot of times we don't often people don't necessarily have to go from being housed to immediately being homeless, right? Many times there's steps, right? You go from being housed to maybe downsizing if you're able to do that, going to living with a friend or a family member, then going to your vehicle, then going to a shelter, then going to the street. So you could go through those steps. You can go right from being housed to straight to the street. You can skip some steps. You can bounce around. All of these different things can take place. Substance abuse, 27%. So again, almost one in three, off by 6%, right? Are saying, hey, alcohol or drugs have affected and caused my homelessness. So in that, what you would say, because this is the cause, right? So these aren't people who were became homeless because of the top five there, right? Mental health or health issues, job loss, unable to work, eviction, loss of housing, a family conflict. And then they started using drugs or alcohol, right? Or uh, abusing those substances, right? These are folks that actually the usage of drugs and alcohol caused the homelessness. So there's a big distinction there, and we really need to be cognizant of that. We're talking about on tipping points and puzzle pieces. We were talking about accountability. We're using homelessness as an example for our conversation for a different purpose, but that's really important as we have these discussions, especially if we're thinking from an empathetic standpoint on how people become homeless and how hard it is for people to reverse that. So 27% report, hey, My cause of homelessness was because of my alcohol and drug use. Doesn't matter how that was, right? It could be, hey, I went to the doctor, had a procedure, I got, pain medication, and that's what it was, right? That would be the most generous example of that. Another one is, hey, I've been, abusing alcohol for a very long time, and it finally caught up to me. It could be, I've been using marijuana and it escalated into harder drugs. It could just be marijuana, right? I was using marijuana. I lost my job because my job required me not to be using marijuana and couldn't find another job that paid the same amount. And by the time I didn't get a chance to recover. Right, I went right into homelessness. That caused it. So, uh, just an important note that marijuana, while can be helpful for people medicinally, also can have some very negative consequences. Also, discharge from systems. So you could be discharged from jail. I assume this may be that you're discharged from maybe a hospital, long-term stay, mental health facility, anything like that. Could be a cause for that also. So 12%. This, I'm surprised, isn't higher, right? So a lot of times people coming out of jail or prison have very little resources in regards to having jobs lined up, definitely having first class deposit, having not having something on your record that precludes you from someone renting to you, and then also not having friends and family that can take you in upon your release from being incarcerated, right? So I'm actually surprised to see that that number is so low. That is quite surprising to me. All right. Now, if you want information on this here, and I'm going to go ahead and shrink this so we can see more of it, you can reach out to the Kitsap County Department of Human Services and the Housing Division. They're there at 345 6th Street, Suite 400 in Bremerton, Washington. And Corey, oh man, I'm going to butcher Corey's last name. Sorry, Corey. Uh, and Corey's awesome, by the way. Corey Derenberger, Division Specialist at 360-337-7287 or see DERENBU at kitsap.gov. Also, again, I'm going to go ahead and put the information for the point in time count, which is kcowa.us/Kitsap hyphen pit, which is point in time. All right, so let me put that in the chat for you also, in case you want to access that information. It is there for you. All right, so that is the point in time count. I wanted to go over that for our deep dive. Uh, as you know, G2 Housing is advocating for bathrooms for the unhoused down on ML King. We believe that uh, every single person should have their basic needs met, and should, this is a humanity thing, but folks should be able to use and have access to the bathroom. Okay. So we find that to be critically important. And I say I have a really bad, I got one bar. My internet is horrible today. I see. All right. Good news there. Let me just check that. I just want to make sure we're okay, everyone. Sorry for that delay, but I'm seeing that I'm not looking too hot there. But again, it's tremendously important in regards to what are we looking at currently, and how is this going to impact us right now? We know this weekend our weather is going to hit about 85 degrees, and we are not even in June yet. Okay. We are projected to have quite a hot summer this year, and that causes a lot of concern for people that are unhoused uh, in regards to, heat stroke, heat exhaustion. Those things can be dangerous and definitely deadly. We just came through ice storms and a really harsh winter, and there's no point in making a comparison on what's worse. They're both bad, but We need to plan now and get ourselves ready for inevitably the next winter season that's coming up. And it is coming, right? It's May 10th. It's going to start getting cold here around October 15th. Um, is when we start to see those temperatures dip. By Halloween, it's definitely chilly, and then we're going into our fall and into our winter, right? So if it's May, it's the fifth month. November 1st is only 6 months away. We don't have a lot of time to plan. We know that Salvation Army has closed their severe shelter. We know that the Port Orchard shelter is not open yet. They're still waiting on their permits. We're still waiting. Last I checked, uh, their rejuvenation center for the Foundation for Poverty and Homeless Management. They're waiting on their permits. Um, and so we have some huge gaps in housing our own house, and we see that our numbers are steadily increasing. We see what's happening across the Pacific Northwest, in Seattle and King County, in Pierce County. We see what's happening in our sister city, in Oregon, in Portland. We see how bad it's gotten, where they're closing Walmarts and Walgreens and things of that nature due to looting and whatnot. Some of it is, opportunist. Some of it is basic survival. Either way, these things are increasing, they're not decreasing. And so we have to, prepare and, uh, be proactive. We cannot afford um, to, be lackadaisical and not address this situation head on. We also cannot stay in a position of putting a band-aid on these things and temporary fixes. We really need to have some political, social will, social contracts. If you watched Tipping Points and Puzzle Pieces, on saying, hey, the citizens, the people that live within the borders of the United States need to be housed. Unless they absolutely want to be unhoused, then that's a choice. But that's the minority. That is not the majority. And so that is something that we have to do. And I think our mindset on this needs to be, uh, hey, maybe you don't want your taxes to go toward that. You want to talk about accountability, and folks bringing these things onto themselves, whether or not that's true. We can look at the statistics on that and see that that probably doesn't ring true. But even if it did, right? You are going to pay one way or another. So you can either pay through just throwing, you know, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars toward homelessness and band-aids and temporary fixes that really don't solve the problem, but try to just address the worst parts of it. Or we can say, hey, look, we're really going to address this head on, and we're going to create some systems that are in place that are really going to reduce, if not eliminate, uh, homelessness altogether, right? And what that looks like, it could be a lot of different things that you will hear me talk about over the next few months. Uh, but those are the things that I believe that we are going to have to do if we're going to change the situation. And you can see when we look at the rest of the country, we can become that country or the rest of the country. We could become those cities, those counties, if we are not uh, diligent, if we're not, uh, leaders in trying to solve this problem. And so we can look at best practices, or we can say, you know what, as a city, as a county, we're going to lead in abolishing homelessness, and we're going to address this thing head on. We're going to provide these resources that are needed, uh, and that's how we're going to go about it, right? You can see that there's a new levy that the fire department and the police department are trying to push through because they are underfunded, and a lot of that is the increase of calls, right, to address folks that are in crisis due to homelessness. And so we need to do something. We can do something, And so the question is again, do we have the political will? Do we have the social will to do something there? Point in time count. It's at 2022. Let's see if we can pull up the 2022 point in time count. And don't know where that is. Publication in archives. Oh, it's right there. Same place. Okay. So what I want to do is pull up 2022 and let's compare. Let me see if I can split the screen here and put two together. If I can, I will do that. Let's see. Share my screen. So, like, what are you doing? Well, I'm trying to make this work for y'all. All right, let's take a look here. So this is 2022. And we're going to shrink this up a bit. Okay, then we're going to go and look at 2023. Okay, let's go ahead and pull that up. And the slides is a PowerPoint. Definitely, I'll keep mentioning it when the weather does turn and the severe weather shelters open. We will definitely need volunteers to volunteer to manage or staff the uh, severe weather shelters. So, if that's something that you didn't do last year, I would definitely implore you to consider doing it this year, just because that need is great. And if there are not enough people to uh, staff a site, then it cannot open. Okay. So this is a really good time to get to recruiting and getting folks uh, invested in supporting in that capacity so that when the wintertime comes, we are ready to go. All right. So, what I wanted to do is just kind of compare some of these statistics from last year to this year. Okay. Now, we already got the numbers because they've shared those for us. But let's take a look at on the left is 2022, on the right, see, on the left is 2022, on the right is 2023. So, in that point in time count, 58% was in Bremerton for 2023. But last year in 2022 it was 43%. Port Orchard was 23%. It went down quite a bit. Silverdale went up by 4%. Paulsbo went down by 6%, and Bainbridge Island went down by 5%. Now, again, this may not say anything because this is a point in time count. Could just be, hey, on that day, this is the people that they were able to count, right? Or this could say something else also. With the 58% versus 43 for Bremerton, I would say there's probably some other things going on there because that number is so great. Okay. Again, let's take a look and see how people reported in 2022. They asked 113 people who were unsheltered, 71% responded, versus this 2023, where 142 people responded, which was 68%. So very close, right? Uh, Almost the same. And you can see mental health was the top one, 57% last year, 67% this year. The second one was chronic substance use, 35% last year, up by 10% this year, uh, 35 to 45. And, again, this could be for a number of different factors. One I would assume is, it is tremendously hard to be unhoused. All right. I'm not sure who that is. Okay. Permanent physical disability, 33% and 35%. So that increased by 2%. Chronic health conditions, 27%, actually went down to 23%, so down 4%. Developmental disabilities went from 12% to to 11, so about the same. And then domestic violence went up from 4% to 8%. Again, we can see over this last year a lot of uh, just craziness going on in the world in the United States. So that one is not surprising for domestic violence. Okay. All right. And now let's go and take a look at the causes of homelessness from 2022 to 20. Whoops. Get back to where you were there. 2023. I just want the slider. There we go. Oh, and again, just taking a look above, the last place of residence in 2022, 80% were in Kitsap County. That went down by 5% to 75 for this year. Other counties, it dropped from 13 to 9% from 2022 to 2023. And then out of state, more than doubled from 7% to 16%. So again, those numbers were pretty low last year in the point in time count, but they more than doubled this year. So again, what does that say? All right, here again, the causes of homelessness in 2022. They spoke to 106 unsheltered households, which was about 66% of the respondents. And in 2023, 113 unsheltered households, which was about half, 54%. So almost the same amount of people, right? And what did they indicate here? Well, they indicated that health issues and mental health were again the top. So 67% in 2022, and that dropped quite a bit by more than 20 points in 2023, right? So 46% of respondents in 2023 said, hey, health issues, mental health issues was the biggest catalyst there. Okay. Job loss was second, or unstable or unable to work, 58% last year in 2022, and that dropped quite a bit to 43% in 2023. Now, what's interesting about that is the moratoriums were still going during that time, right? So we're looking at, well, were people evicted because they lost their job and they were unable to work? Like, how did that impact them? It actually dropped from last year to this year, which is surprising. Now, people that were evicted in 2022 was 40%, and this year the evictions or loss of housing was 28%, a 12% drop. Again, that's pretty surprising to me. uh, the eviction moratorium was on, but that ended over the course of the last year. And so the fact that people were a decreased percentage said, hey, only 28% lost their home to or became homeless due to eviction or loss of housing is pretty interesting. Okay. Family conflict, again, 37%, uh, 35% in 2022 and 27% in 2023, another decrease there. And then substance use was about the same, 25%, 27%, went up to 2 percentage points. So, I mean, not really significantly significant there, which is quite interesting. And then discharge from systems, jail, prison, mental health institutions, whatever, right? Hospital, long hospital stays. I think all those things could be part of that. 15% in 2022 and 12% in 2023. So, what do these numbers say? Is there anything that drew your attention to this as an outlier, or wow, that really surprised me? I didn't think that was what was going on with our homeless issue here in Kitsap County. Um, are you surprised in this different cities? How much homelessness exists, and what can we do about it? What can we do about it? How do we get this number down? Right. Again, 604 total who were counted. Okay. Again, 245 that are unsheltered. And again, this is a point in time count. This is a snapshot on one day, right? So it is grossly undercounted. There's way more here in the county. But just on that one day, they captured that many. We have 257 people in an emergency shelter. We have 102 people in transitional housing. When you think about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, children who are experiencing homelessness, either through transitional housing, emergency shelters, or pure homelessness, how does that impact their development? How does that impact what they take into their adulthood? So these are all things that we need to be cognizant of and consider. Okay. All right. Again, I hope that you found this helpful. You can get the point in time count information from the website on the screen here, kcowa.us/kitsap hyphen PIT point in time count. Whoops. All right. That is nice. So that was our deep dive for today. I hope that you found that informative. Like I said, we're going to be back at about 5 p.m. for City Council. It is study session day. So I hope that you will tune in and join us for that. Next week will be the Kids Up Housing and Homeless Coalition meeting at 2 p.m. So do tune into that because that is always tremendously informative. I don't know what's on the docket to talk about next week, but it's always good stuff and very informative. And we will be broadcasting that here on the conduit. So for all the folks that are not here today that are normally here. We miss our normal co-host there with the Birmingham Housing Authority and KCR. They shall return once they are back. But when they're not here, what you know is they're busy doing the work, which is awesome. So anyhow, I'm Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. We'll see you guys in about an hour.